We'll be moving to the fireplace where we'll have a little cozy session, and I'll read my next story that I'm working on about Forrester House. If anyone were to tell me 4 months ago that I would be hanging out regularly with a fraternity, I would have been pretty confused. I didn't go to a college with a strong fraternity culture, but that didn't prevent me from hearing about the ways an exclusively male organization could amplify male norms and expectations to a point of harm. Yet, as someone who writes, lives, and thinks about communal living, I see fraternities as communities. And with any community, there is a reciprocal relationship between group culture and the individuals that create that culture. So even though I hold generalizations about fraternities as a whole, each fraternity, i.e. community, is, in my opinion, culturally represented by the people who are living it. I didn't actually end up recording it, so maybe we should just, so it should be fine. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, back to the story. Late in the summer, I was walking around Berkeley, hopelessly unaware I was on Fraternity Row. I saw a dark wooden gate ajar, and thinking it was public property, waltzed into a beautiful courtyard under an ancient red oak tree. Surrounding the courtyard were dark beams that held up wooden joinery of a marvelous design, reminiscent of Japanese-style woodworking and inspiring images of a seafaring ship. A young man, Ernest, whose name, like all the names in the story I've changed, noticed me and remarked that this was a private backyard. But my curiosity usually overtakes any sort of modesty I have about exploring a place that interests me. And I loitered around, ignoring Ernest's hints for privacy. It was just so shocking to me that a house that evoked the quiet grandeur of a woodland sprite's inn could exist in Berkeley. Another young man, Gabe, appeared in the courtyard to talk about bulk food, which, as a co-op enthusiast, quickly hooked me in. With a little bit of self-promotion, I was able to insert myself as a worthy visitor and a researcher to the strange home, which I learned through conversation was a fraternity, but not quite. The 14 residents of the house, more often than not, used the name of the family who commissioned the building of the house in the early 1900s to refer to the name of the home. Forrester House, they called it, when telling me where to meet them, or when talking about the group as a whole. However, the fraternity name held significant weight, as the house participated in classic fraternity rituals like rushing and secret society business that was only hinted at to me. The first night I came over, I walked into a kitchen, alive with pans blazing on a restaurant-style stove, music pumping, spirits high. It'd been a while since Monday night dinners had been in practice with the pandemic, and the Forresters were feeling excited to be face-to-face with new and dear faces. Starling danced into the kitchen, swirling from one task to the next in a manner that now seems iconic to their hostess with the Moses-like style. Introducing himself to me, he shared that Forrester was unlike any other fraternity on the block. They rejected the parts of fraternity culture that upheld norms like exclusiveness and non-consensual behavior. This sentiment was later echoed to me by Moss, who told me Forrester was the first place that they had ever felt welcomed as someone who was questioning their gender identity. Food started to pile up on the table. A meal that Rowan introduced as a slice of life, inspired by his memories of Olive Garden. As hungry hands dove into the pasta, salad, and garlic bread, Addie stood up gathering the attention of those who lined the long wooden table. Poised and firm, she led the group in an icebreaker. What was your third most embarrassing moment? Not your first or second, but third. Memories that were perhaps not the right pairing with dinner ran through the room with laughter, and I felt this sense that I was peering into a fascinating world created in part by this house. A house which for 40 years was a single family home and for nearly 80 years has facilitated different iterations of fraternity cohorts per year. A house which could be seen as another fraternity on Frat Row, but really just seems like a place where young people can practice self-governance, communal living, and all the good messiness that comes with being in relationship with each other. Dinner began winding down and several foresters announced the end to Monday night dinner and began shepherding their guests away from the second segment to Mondays at Forester House. Monday night meetings. I wistfully watched as the group gathered in the living room, closing the glass door on non-members. It would be a month before I would attend the beginning of another meeting and to learn more about the house's struggles with their alumni board and the ways in which tradition and generational shifts clash and long for each other. You've got to get Sylvan to give you a house tour. This was the insistence of many Foresters who felt that as guardians of Forester House history, Sylvan had a knack for remembering the minutiae of house information down to the last brick. We planned to meet on a weekday afternoon so I could experience the light filtering through the stained glass windows of California black oak branches. We started the tour at the front of the house where a small bronze placard reading Forester's fraternity name looked out onto a busy street of students making their way to or from class, or if on the weekend, the playground for the work hard, play even harder type. Sylvan and Moss, my guides for the afternoon, they taught me that the wood on the outside of the house was locally sourced, whilst the inside housed more exotic woods from around the world, and that each window was different, part of a purposely asymmetrical design theme. Their painted nails pointed to the cloud lifts, the faux pegs, the presence of nature themes within each home. I felt their reverence for this place when Sylvan described the peace they felt when walking into the foyer, the golden light surrounding them. And within that reverence, I also felt their hesitancy. If I could put my finger on it, it was a tension between a profound respect for the home and the opportunity to live here, mixed with an understanding that for most of this house's history, people like Sylvan and Moss were purposely excluded. Both Sylvan and Moss identify as people of color, and financially speaking, could never imagine living in a place like Forester without the affordable rent made possible by the fraternity organization. And perhaps as homage to the house's outdated past, my tour was dotted with facts about the Orientalism imbued throughout the home, as well as all the ways the servants' dwelling spaces and entrances were purposely hidden from sight. The servants' rooms, where most of the Foresters live, are beautiful, but modest, and make up more than half of the house, an astounding testament to the type of wealth that created the Forester house. What I find interesting is that past, those servants' quarters, has allowed for the home to house up to 40 people, and as of now, 14 people who live together communally, which up until very recently has been limited only to men. But living in Forester today are 3 women, Addie, Lou, and Marley, a transition that can only be remarked as a turning point in the history of Forester House. That is part 1 to the Forester House story. I am continually spending time with them, building relationship with people at Forester House, and just generally enjoying my time, spending time in another communal household. If you are potentially interested in hearing more about the story and also getting more updates about the part 2 and part 3, as well as other projects I'm working on around this topic of communal living, you can sign up to the email list at livingtogether.us. So I think we could probably just dive straight into the premiere and not necessarily do the YouTube premiere link. just because that was necessarily, the timing isn't really working out for that. All right, so here we are at the point of the have about the film. So keep those questions in your mind. All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of technical finagling and get this premiere rock and rolling.
If I asked other people in our house what my role is, they would definitely say dad or daddy. That's like the number one thing feedback that I've gotten.
What role do I play? I don't know if I have a name for it. I'm really thinking.
My role at Crescent House.
My role, yeah. So like I said, this is a difficult.
Fun. I don't know if I would ever be able to answer the question. I feel like everyone else would be able to answer the question.
We had this thing that was kind of like a dream or just like a fun thing to talk about, which I have with lots of friends. Like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Wouldn't it be cool if we did that? And in our house, we always said, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we went to New Mexico?
So we started off here at our house in Berkeley.
3 cars, caravanning, down through California to my parents' house in LA, which was pretty cute. They weren't there, but I just remember rolling up to the house and like my brother was staying there and everybody was out. We were the last ones there, me and Olali, and everybody was out like chilling on the lawn, playing instruments, and my brother was bringing out snacks, and it was like I'd never even chilled on the lawn at my house before.
As long as we do what we need.
So Kylie, they just asked you to leave the grocery store because you weren't wearing shoes?
Yeah,
How was that?
it happened.
Is everybody in the house Jewish? Not officially.
I feel like I'm probably fine just eating more of that quinoa salad and hot sauce. I'm not really craving anything.
I think it'd be nice to have like we all like have like something like a little thing that we get to cook, like a cobbler. No, I'll start over. Like.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I'm feeling very tired and I'd like to fall asleep in whatever car I'm in. I wouldn't think it'd be safe to put me behind the wheel.
Because it is this sort of like formal structure of like, we go around and say how we feel, or like, you know, about the like, okay, what do we want to do for dinner tonight? We like each go around or pass or whatever, and then someone like synthesizes or like makes a proposal, and then everyone goes around and like gives consent or not.
Don't you have something to do, Wells? What kind of a dork are you? Is it hard to put your pants back? The echoes or something. What's happening? It's like a fan. What happens? Why does it sound funny when you talking to fans? No.
What?
What is memorable?
Like about my life or about bacon?
Wow, that's memorable.
I got in there.
You eating that? Singing out 2% to that.
It was a pig, from a pig.
From a pig. salty. How come pigs are so salty? JK, it's not true.
Hey, let's chat to the camera real fast.
Chat to the camera. What's up with the camera?
Well, how's it going today?
How's it going today? We're just trying to recharge because the road trip didn't bring its own energy.
So far this drive, I feel like has been like the highlight of the day for me.
Nice.
We
Fuck
jammed
yeah.
in the car while it was raining and it was so beautiful.
The rain was beautiful, yeah.
Like driving here and...
So in the Gila, are we going to be able to...
So I had been to the Gila before, and later we found out from the rangers that the year that I had gone to the Gila was called a non-soon season, so no monsoons. And I remember throughout the entire trip, just like everyone being so worried about monsoons and flash floods, and I just felt like completely...
Oh, he's a legend. Look at him off into the mist. Never to be seen again.
Sometimes your pals just ride off into the distance and you're stuck here.
Blake's Lauderburger is kind of like the In-N-Out of New Mexico. So it was, that was
Hey,
when I saw
DJ.
that, I was like, all right, we're doing it.
What's up?
How you
But it
doing?
could definitely
Good.
be
I
some
kind
of
of
that.
want. I want to go beyond the puddle. I'm so curious now, but I also am like, it was late in the day.
Yeah.
Over here in this moment.
Do you feel a little disappointed?
No, I feel like the trip is finally breaking down, so we can start making changes and not holding so strongly to what we wanted to happen.
The trip is
So we can
breaking
finally
down.
start having fun. That's kind of how I feel.
Yes,
You think the trip is breaking down right now?
Yeah, look at us.
Look at us!
We need a crisis
Look at us!
together.
Look at us!
I'm looking. It's looking like pretty okay.
You know,
Looking at
like,
us, invisibility
up
is
until
about
now.
a couple hundred yards.
Yes, Jonah.
everybody was getting annoyed with everybody else.
Really? Who was getting annoyed with me?
All of us.
Literally.
Betting that fucking cheeseburger.
You bailed for a solo food mission. We already all have dinner plan. We're trying to accomplish a goal. It's like not the time.
It's like from a chain.
A New Mexico only chain.
I mean, if we were all gonna go do that and change the group plan, sure. But like delaying the group plan,
I think
not
it
so
worked
good.
out perfectly.
Well, clearly. This happened because you got a cheeseburger.
Devin's trying to cancel the backpacking trip for flash floods.
You know, I really did almost. I think to myself, I'm like, wait a second. We're going through the River Valley route instead of the higher terrain route. And then I was like, Ben, you chose the cheeseburger over having any input on group plans. You better not say shit.
You're like, I was born for this.
Devin!
I'll do a lot.
Olali is ready to go!
Like a half mile down the road, there was it was a massive, muddy river. Huge. Like the length of a school bus.
Dudes, you'll never believe what just happened.
Yes, we will.
I want you to be covered in mud.
Tyler, don't move.
You made it to the campground.
No.
What just happened?
The river's it's fucking huge. I talked to this dude in the truck over there. He's just waiting there. You like live right here? He's like, yeah. I've never seen anything like that.
Whoa!
And I was like, whoa, actually, okay. I probably said something like, tell me more. And he goes, yeah, I've never even had this this road get flooded this bad. I've never been able to not cross in my truck.
Welcome to the
And
future.
and I was like, all right, well, so you're just gonna wait then?
Living in
Like,
the future.
Hours? He's like, yeah. It's either that or I take the same amount of time probably to like drive around, so I might as well just stare at the water.
When we went back, there was flash flooding that stopped us. Like that, when I had driven in 15-20 minutes earlier, had been a trickle across the road and then was a river.
And I think today was really tricky because we thought it was going to be a lot shorter driving, and it was a lot longer, and then big storms. And now we're stuck.
Well, I got something to say.
Say it, baby.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just take this example of the cheeseburgers, which is like, when I heard you be like, oh, what if I want to get a cheeseburger? I was like, oh, okay, well, like, we had this plan of, let's have this dinner when we get there. But like, if you're gonna get a cheeseburger, like, maybe that could become dinner for everybody. And try, I was like, I'm into that. I didn't maybe say that clearly, but like, I tried to sort of steer it in that direction, so, because I also knew we were holding the like, oh, we gotta get to the place before dark. And so I guess felt like, oh, I'm trying to like take your thing, merge it with like the other things, trying to like stir, blend, and like build the group thing. I don't necessarily feel like everybody's voicing the same level of like, this is what I want to be happening, or like, this is how I feel about like what you're wanting to be happening. And so, since we're not all being as direct and open with what we want, like, then the people who are more vocal end up like, the people who are less vocal are like more just like sacrificing for the group, and the other people are, and that feels like a live tension that we haven't like totally opened up.
Yeah, I think I shared with you just a few days ago too about conflict, like living together, and conflict that's that comes up no matter who you're living with in what situation. It'll always be there, but living collectively means that you're like making an extra commitment to these people, and in that commitment is like, you want to feel good, you want them to feel good, so you have to share your frustrations, so that then afterwards you can be bonded a little more, so you don't have to think about it, so you don't have to worry about the conflict. But if you're not living collectively, you're just cohabitating on a more basic level.
To the group and our own needs are present at home for me, and they're also going to be present here. So all of that is like good stuff, and don't think that like now it doesn't apply. It's like still really good. And we have a lot of foundation of working on this, and I like really trust all of us to do so well.
Huzzah.
But just like an invitation to bring that practice in. Check.
I think people would probably say I'm like the dreamer / visionary. I took a break for 4 years from film, and now I'm filming again, so I'm excited to bring it on this trek.
Nice.
I definitely have that big dreamer quality, and I think that can be really energizing for people. I think it definitely has led to a lot. It's led to a lot of just really cool things happening at Crescent House, including the creation of Crescent House.
I translate a lot of our vision into like practical steps, because one of the main things we like to do is like dream. Instruction.
Oh, who put the olives in this container?
Oh yeah, the olives were for packaging. We didn't have any packing peanuts, so we used the package of olives.
Okay.
We gotta rinse that off.
I'm not
sure.
sure.
So we're still gonna eat this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right here, eating that.
And that's I think it's a really important thing for our specific community, probably for all communities, but like this dreaming helps us stay excited about the work that we're doing, because it is a lot of work.
I'm like a little bit in the vision, like a little bit in like the practicality.
Okay. How's it going here, gang? Cooking some breakfast, huh?
Quick though.
Yeah. That was great.
What are you gonna do with it?
Yeah, we got oatmeal for breakfast.
Nothing now.
Oh, nothing.
Hopefully
Great.
it's enough for
That was for Olali's
yeah.
tea.
But I think it will be.
Great.
Hey, bon appetit. We got 4 bowls here. Slash, we just need 3, right? Because you're gonna...
Oh, that's actually 2 bowls and 2 cups. But
I'm like, mostly feel like I bring the like, I'm down for this. Like, I like, get what's going on. I'm like here for it and like, I'm committed, like joyfully committed to like doing it. And like I think that really gave it like and continues to give it this like really like strong like foundation.
I've been told that people appreciate my like I don't know, silliness and like extra energy and like even right now as I'm sitting here I feel like the opposite of that. I feel like, you know, sincere and serious, and I think that's something that I offer to the house.
Diggity dog, we're trying to make a radical plan right now. Good morning, radical plan time. Gather in, hear ye.
Well, that
We're
like
here to
swooshy closing
proclaim
combo is so great.
what we're gonna do. Because we're in the swamps, I mean the meadows.
But the role that I think is maybe more interesting to talk about is what I kind of think of as like a sponge or a processor or something like that, where it allows for the other kind of functionings of the house to run more smoothly, and to for arguments that might have otherwise happened to not happen, or for, you know, misunderstanding, for all the different ways that interpersonal conflict can kind of scuttle teamwork. I prevent that in a way by like showing up and doing the sponge work before it gets to that point.
Beware the Jabberwock, my son. The jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his Vorpal sword.
Sure, dogs.
Yeah.
Holy
do you need another
shit.
finger?
It's just all on the river, so
I
it's
tried
fucked.
to tell you. My fingers are available though.
I know.
Can we take a really deep breath?
I didn't know if you wanted to tell us to let it out or not.
I don't know.
Just gonna hold it in there.
Need somebody telling you when to blow your breath out?
Yeah.
I'm ready for that chant now.
Yeah.
I don't want to chant.
Oh! We! No, how's it go?
I.
You.
What do I do when my love is away? Does it worry you? Oh, that one you're supposed to.
Okay.
Like it's a call and response.
Okay.
What do I do when my love is away?
Does it worry you to be all alone?
How do I feel by the end of the day?
Are you sad because you're on your own?
No, I get by with a little help from my friends. Ooh,
I get
high
high
with a little help from my friends. Yes, I'm gonna
try with a little help from my friends.
That was great.
I think that was great.
I think that was great.
We're still trying to figure out how tech works out here. Oh my gosh, thank you all for being here and watching that little short film. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So now we're gonna dive into the Q&A. And we're actually not all here together in person right now. So Jonah and Olali are going to be able to answer any questions you might have, but they will be in their respected places. So Ben is going to come join me by the fire. And if you have a question for us, either about the film, about our co-op, about Forester House, feel free to raise your hand. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the raise hand reaction, but in Zoom you can react, or you can also type your question in the chat. That's totally fine as well. So we're gonna do this for about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to re-sing the song that I sang in the intro, since unfortunately, I did not play record when I was set up my camera. So that we're gonna try and do that again so I can record that. Alrighty. So if you've got a question, let's see, how do I do this, gallery? Either raise your hand in a reaction or put a question in the link below. But actually, I'm curious. I have a question for you, Ben, because that was the first time Ben actually watched the documentary. So maybe we could start with Ben's reaction.
Sure. My strongest reaction was I didn't realize how much of a storyline my decision to split off from the group and get a green chili cheeseburger at Blake's Lottaburger was going to be. That was kind of embarrassing, but it was a true thing that happened. I loved it. I thought the documentary did a great job of kind of capturing the combination of our really kind of lighthearted spirit with the really high level of like emotional intelligence and communication that we're able to engage in, just kind of in all contexts, right? Like whether we're in a formal meeting situation scenario or not. And I think that's a really sweet kind of, I don't know if juxtaposition is the right word, but both of those things, yeah.
Yeah, well said. All right, so we've got a question from NJ. How do you come together and how do you deal with conflict? Such a great question.
Maybe Olali or Jonah want to answer that one?
Yeah, I actually don't see Olali on here, so maybe it's just me, you, and Jonah talking about conflict.
Nice.
Jonah, why don't you start off? You're good at this kind of thing. Oh, Jonah can't unmute himself right now. Oh, here. That's because
we forgot to hear it. Go to security. Yeah.
Okay, I think I got it.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me?
Do we have any voice on?
Can you hear me? Anybody?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks, Viper. How do we deal with conflict? Well, I think we each have our own ways of dealing with it, but my own tendency is to like avoid it at all costs. And I think that a lot of us, maybe with the exception of Kylie, like also have that tendency coming into the communal living situation. So for myself, a lot of it is just like practicing going through it over and over and realizing and trying to like train myself emotionally that like a conflict is not a bad thing, and like reminding each other that and being reminded by that. That's like one thing I'll say. We don't have any like real formal conflict structures. We usually try to deal with them like interpersonally, one-on-one, before they reach the level of something that would need to come to like a house meeting or something like that. That being said, there are lots of like tensions that maybe have the potential to become a conflict if you don't talk about them and clear them. And so having like a space in our house meetings every other week to like raise those things, I think makes a really nice valve to like release those tensions.
And there was also a secondary part to that question, which is how do you come together? Maybe that's a question for you to answer, Ben.
Sure. I want to say one more thing about conflict, which I think Jonah basically said, but I just want to highlight that in general, like bringing things up with each other earlier rather than later, like before they've gotten to the point, before they've kind of festered and built up difficult emotion, when it's just like a thing that you'd like to give feedback on, that often helps a lot. I think just bringing things up with each other and trusting that that's going to be received well goes a long way to processing conflict. As far as coming together, the house meetings are definitely, we have bi-weekly house meetings. That's a big way. And I think with 5 folks in what's officially a 2-bedroom house, it's kind of like you can't help but come together. I mean, somebody's often there in the kitchen when you're, making lunch or breakfast. Somebody's cooking a meal every night in our house, but we don't have any like real rigid structures around like everybody being there for dinner every night. So it ends up being the house meeting nights where we're all together for dinner. I don't know if that really answers the question.
Well, answers it for now. All right, next question from Ari. Hi, Ari. Can you share more with us about consensus decision-making? How and when do you decide to use it? This also feels like a good thing for you to answer, Jonah, because you introduced for us.
Yeah, I was just unmuting myself to answer that. So while we started out using consensus decision-making kind of like at an informal level, because I think that's what we'd learned from other sort of communal or cooperative settings, but we got introduced to this new model of decision-making that we use now called consent. And the main difference is that in consensus, if one person just doesn't like the idea, they can block it. But in consent, instead of asking if everybody likes the idea, we ask if you can live with it. Like, is that idea, is the thing that's being proposed like okay with you? And it's a subtle difference, but it makes for a lot more of a bias towards making decisions and moving forward and seeing how it goes, rather than trying to figure out what everybody feels good about when we're trying to make a decision together. And so one way that I've heard it explained is like everybody has like preferences and also things that they can tolerate. And so instead of seeking something that is within everybody's preferences, which is what consensus does, we just seek to find a decision that everybody can at least tolerate.
Great, thanks, Jonah. That's such a good way of putting it. So the next question is, how has COVID and everything surrounding it affected the dynamic of living together? That's kind of funny because right now you can see we're affected by COVID right now. Maybe I can answer that because I feel like actually kind of impacted by it today, where sometimes it could actually make it harder living communally. And yeah, I feel like sometimes it can make it harder when you live communally during COVID, because you're having to have these conversations, you're having to negotiate people's different levels. Like, something I've learned with COVID is that it's not necessarily like just about the risk of getting COVID, but it's also the mental and emotional impact. And so that's another level in which that I'm noticing we're having to walk. And I mean, it's definitely not easy, but at the very least, we have the structures and the practice to be in those conversations. And I feel really lucky for that. Is there anything else, Jonah or Ben, you want to add on that question?
Just that in deep COVID, we were eating dinner together every night, all 5 of us, and at risk of jinxing us all, I really love that and miss it a little bit. The like that really deep closeness, I think in a way, like we built a lot of relationship through that, where now, because it's a little more opened up, on any given night, somebody's going to have something that they're out of the house doing. It's a lot rarer for us all to be the 5 of us around the table together.
So we've got a question from Michelle. Hey, Michelle, I'm going to wave to you from across the street right now. Who says, as your neighbor, I often wonder how you ended up living together in the house you're in. Is that something you'll explore in a future episode? Maybe the past selves you bring to the community plays a role in how you talk about conflict and consensus. Yeah, so maybe we could talk a little bit about, I guess, the genesis of Crescent House and how we ended up being a group of people living together. I guess I could start and maybe I'll pass it on to Jonah, who can then add more to it, and then pass to Ben, who is actually our newest member at Crescent House. So I was the first original member of Crescent House, and I met Jonah through grassroots organizing with this youth climate organization called the Sunrise Movement. And Jonah and I actually started a team together called the Community Builders. So it was kind of funny that, after doing that, we were like, you know what, it might be kind of cool to start a community together. And at the time, there were several other people living here. And so we tried to turn the house into a co-op. And because of COVID, a lot of people ended up leaving. And so we had a little bit more of the opportunity to bring in people who really wanted to live cooperatively. And then that process was like through Craigslist and like Facebook. And then Jonah, do you want to talk a little bit more about that process and the folks who came in?
Yeah, sure. And I think it might be a good time to also just answer the next question I see in the chat, which is, in successful community living, how much do you think it has to do with finding the right people and how much has to do with approach? So as Kylie was saying, we had an opportunity really early on in our process of starting the co-op to invite a bunch of new people to move in and live with us. And I think that's what really allowed us to shape our approach, was like finding people and seeing what they each brought to the situation. Like I had some experience living in a formal co-op before, and other people had different experience living in communal houses or being part of like other communities. And we all sort of brought that to bear as we shaped and built our systems. I was telling somebody recently about some of our systems, and they were like, oh, are you part of this communal living organization or this other thing? Like, how did you come up with all that stuff? And I think we've really like adapted it to the specific needs of the group of people. That being said, like, I think that picking the people that you live with is like one of the most important decisions that you make, especially as a co-op, because those are the people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. They're basically like a family. And, they say you can't choose your family, but you actually can if you live in a co-op. So that's my parents laughing in the background. So yeah, we've put a lot of effort, I think, into our process for interviewing people. We have like a written application and usually multiple like face-to-face interviews to try to figure out if there's like a mutual fit in the way that we want to live our lives.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I guess the last thing I'll just add is that something that feels really important to me is buy-in and like commitment to working through challenges. I think the fact that we all are kind of here with roughly the same vision of like living together in a close way and coordinating our lives in a relatively close way in terms of, sharing food and taking care of the house together and doing lots of activities and things together. Because there's that basis, any like challenges that come up with that or potential obstacles that come up with that, or it's like friction in that process, there's like, you don't have to worry that people are just going to like not want to put in the kind of emotional energy to get through it. That part feels given. That's what we're here to do. And I think having that gives us makes it all possible, basically.
Definitely does. All right, so Megan asking, hey Megan, by the way, question, which is, what would you consider are core differences between communal living and other kinds of cohabitating? So either in values, practicalities, or both. So core differences between communal living and other kinds of cohabitating.
I think we should answer that one.
I should answer that one? Okay. You know, it's kind of funny because I think that part of my philosophy, or like what I try and evoke in my art around communal living, is that I don't see a lot of differences between cohabitating and communal living. Like my other project on Forester House is about a fraternity, which people wouldn't necessarily say, oh, that's communal living, but in many ways I see it as very much communal living. It's people living together communally. And so for me, I think it's hard to differentiate it. And I really do think that many of you guys right now on this call are probably in the process of cohabitating with people in many ways and many levels, maybe communally or not. It just might not be officialized. Yeah, I mean, I see it in so many different forms, like being on a team with people. I think that's a form of cohabitating. Same with, you know, at work, or even just like when you're out and about, like at a concert or something, you're like negotiating with different people on how to be together. So, but I would say what communal living does differently maybe is like, there is this intentionality behind it, and it creates the space for conversations to be held, and it creates, yeah, just like, also, I think the cool thing about communal living that I'm noticing is that we are also very committed. There's like this commitment to longevity in some ways, which is really cool.
I could add a little something to that. I mean, I think in some concrete ways, like for example, we all pitch in, we pay a few $100s a month into a communal food plan, and then I shop each week for the whole house, and we share all of our food. And people can make requests, and we've got staples, we've got a system. So that feels like one really big difference between just having people you're living in the same building with and people you're living communally with, is sharing food. I think sharing resources generally, like we share, I think, like, you know, instruments and I mean, like kitchen equipment, like a lot of the things that not everybody needs their own one. Like we share stuff, we share food, we share a lot of things like that. And then the other thing I'd say is, like, maybe just through an anecdote, one of the challenges we've been dealing with as a house is that I particularly have been wanting to sing really loudly in the house, and that's been kind of challenging at times for the sound environment of the house. And the response, and you know, we were talking about it at a house meeting and thinking about ways, well, oh, maybe I could sing at certain times of day, or we could talk about how to navigate when's a good time for me to do it so that I'm not bothering anybody. And Jonah had a suggestion, well, why don't we talk about adding some soundproofing to enable you to sing like you want to and not feel like you're bothering anybody. And I think that spirit of, let me, as part of this community, let me help find solutions to my community's problems. Even if I think in another context, if it was just cohabitation, you might say, oh, you've got no right to like sing at the top of your lungs in the living room, like that. We just need to ask you to not do that, or something like that. Whereas Jonah, like, I don't know if took responsibility is the right phrasing, but like stepped in kind of to make an improvement to communal life. That I think that level of like, yeah, willingness somehow, or like extension, it just is a mark to me of communal living as opposed to cohabitation.
Cool. Well, we've got one last question, which I think it might be fun for all of us to answer this one. Hey, Zoe and Dardan. good to see you on here. So what's a specific moment that really made an impact on your life? So like maybe, I'm guessing this is maybe in the context of living communally, but it says example, friendships, work, family, etc. So maybe a specific moment. Yeah, let's take it like what's a specific moment in our life at Crescent House that really made an impact. The first thing that comes to mind is when Devin ripped off his shirt, but I'm not gonna go there. Okay. I have mine. I can start. Honestly, this is like something that I think about very often, which is this one moment where me, Jonah, and Alali were trying to find new housemates. And I was just like, it was like deep COVID. I was just like tired and working really hard and just kind of grumpy. And I pretty much left an interview. And I remember just like, I don't know, it was not great on my end. And I remember Jonah and Alali sitting me down and just being like, that's just like not okay. Like we don't want one of our teammates to do that. It does not make us feel good or make us feel like a team. And that was like one of the hardest moments for me living in the house, to have like the two people I was building this community with being like, you're not showing up totally right now. And I attribute that moment to so many, just like every single time I'm getting kind of like hungry or tired at a house meeting, I remember that moment and just like recommit to the house. So that I would say that's like a really big impactful moment from Crescent House for me.
I'll jump in, maybe let Jonah have the last word. Well, honestly, I think of the first time that you and I met, Kylie, the Sunrise meeting at Jonah's old place in San Francisco, the community builders meeting, where this was pre-COVID, so we could have, political organizing meetings in people's living rooms together with like, 10 or 12 folks. And it was my first Sunrise meeting ever, and hadn't really done much organizing before, and was excited to be there. And after the meeting, picked up a guitar and started, kind of tootling, and that ended up being a kind of the first kind of spark for you and I's friendship. And I guess the reason I mentioned that is the way that existing network, you mentioned you and Jonah met through Sunrise, the like, in some ways that social network of Sunrise really kind of provided me personally with so much connection, and so much of what today is my network that's kind of grown out of that, even as I've grown away a little bit from Sunrise. That I just want to name just how valuable those kinds of like volunteer, like what we think of as like community organizing efforts can be to all different facets of the ways that we live together, just by forming context to build those relationships in with people who share values. And yeah.
Well, I really love this question, and I can't think of anything like super profound, but what really just came to mind was that like a few days ago when I left to visit my parents, Kylie drove me to the airport, and she's going to pick me up when I get back. And Ben just drove Alali to the airport, and like we all just take each other to the airport. And it's a real impact. I don't know. It feels really different to like get picked up at the airport than to just like take a Lyft or take transit home. So that's what I'll close on.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much, Ben and Jonah, for being part of that Q&A. Thank you all for being part of this crazy journey. Like I said, I'm going to close off with the same song I opened with. If you missed it from the beginning, stay and if you'd like. Otherwise, feel free to sign off. Really appreciate you all. Again, if you want to stay connected with me and this project I'm working on, livingtogether.us. And here we go with the song. And we're going to actually record it this time.
Yes, I'm doing this here. Where's your Sophia there?
Oh, there's a hand. Oh. Closing off at a piano. What a luxury. So I wrote this song inspired by all the people who tell me that communal living seems really, really hard and I don't know if I could do it. And so I wanted to write the song about all the things that I feel like people want to say, but instead of saying it, just tell me I can't do it. So here it goes. How do you make sure that the dishes are washed? Do you make a mess and hope it won't be noticed? Or even better, that person you cleaned up after will finally remember they have a conscience. Do you wish that you could leave all the doors wide open so you can cry, poop, and dance without feeling like a creep? Don't you want to be all alone in your home so you can walk around with your shoes on without feeling like it's a crime? Why would anyone want to live together when you can binge on Netflix without the whole world knowing? Where it's acceptable to eat the same thing every day, cold potato chips on curry and condiments for lunch. To clean up after someone is kind of icky. Do you have to assign roles for the stairs or create a drawer wheel? Sounds a little like elementary school. Does it work for adults too? Can I really keep people accountable through a sticker chart? They tell me, I don't know if I can live together. I'm such a mess and I don't want to be put to the test. I just want to be me and people are scary. And I tell them, living together has nothing to do with not being yourself, and it has everything to do with seeing yourself in the eyes of those who love you, being forgiven for your mistakes because we all do it, the feedback to improve, and even harder yet, giving that feedback too. Realizing that if I want to lay on the floor all day, that's totally okay. Take forward tap takes up way too much brain space. I trust you to do the dishes and I'll clean the toilet any day. It's not easy to live together, but it's not easy to live alone either. At least this way we get to practice and get better at living together every damn day. That was it, folks. Last thing, this is a little comic I made that you can't really see, but here it is up close. Bye, everybody. Livingtogether.us.